Welcome to the program. I'm Mark Imperial. This segment's being brought to you by booksgrowbusiness.com. It's the place where busy professionals get their books published and done to educate consumers, grow their practices, and to leave a legacy. I'm doing a series of spotlights on remarkable business intermediaries from across the country. Joining me on this segment is Ed Sadler. He's with Sunbelt Business Brokers of Colorado. Ed, welcome to the program.
Thanks very much. Appreciate it.
Ed, tell us a little bit about your work and specifically who are those types of clients that you specialize in helping?
Yeah. Okay. So Sunbelt Business Brokers is actually the single biggest franchise in the country and actually in the world, working in the business brokerage sector. Um, we're in Colorado. We've been here altogether about 4 years. Really, what we're trying to do is work with owners of businesses who are contemplating selling. We work with them to then identify what their business is worth. And then if they agree to list with us, then we go out to find buyers. And really, so most of our sellers are Colorado based, but the buyers really could be coming from anywhere in the world.
So, folks that are selling today,
Mhm.
they've been running a business for a long time typically. So, is this
Well,
like the first time that they're going through the process and they're not really quite sure about how the process works? How prepared and informed are sellers today?
yeah, it's a very good question. Most of the time, owners are selling for the first time. There are people out there who are serial entrepreneurs, obviously, and who have sold businesses before. But most of the people we're talking to, this is the first time they're selling. They may have been running this and owning this business for years, but it's time for them to move on. Uh, a lot of times, their initial thoughts are, "I'm going to try to sell this on my own," and it almost never works. Not to say it doesn't ever happen, but the success rate is pretty low if you're trying to sell it on your own. You really need to have an intermediary such as Sunbelt to help you with the process. We know the process. The owners know their business. We do not need to be experts in their industry, their business per se. What we bring to it is the process of selling a business, and that's what we do.
Can
And most of the time owners get that, and that's when they'll agree to work with us.
Can you give us a little insight on that? Like, if a business owner tries to sell it themselves, and for the most part, most of the time, they're not successful with that, what causes the breakdown? What typically happens or doesn't happen that causes a business not to sell when they try to sell on their own?
Yeah, it could really be anywhere along the entire process. If if they don't list it in the right places, most of the buyers of small companies nowadays are coming in through the internet. There's quite a few websites out there, including Sunbelts, where buyers will go there, search for the type of business they want, where they want it. Sellers may not even know where to list. And even if they do, if they start getting inquiries coming in, they may not really know how to make the process work. They need to vet the buyers, make sure that the buyers have the financial capability to buy. They and then you get into the due diligence phase, and a lot of sellers are really not familiar with what buyers are going to be looking for in terms of the due diligence process. So there's quite a few stages along the process where it can all fall apart. And those are some of the key ones where it just doesn't work if you're trying to do it on your own.
We're in a really interesting time right now. The inspiration for this series was the Great Resignation, which is bringing a lot of more buyers into the market, looking for businesses that they could run for their next chapter, and motivating sellers, for example. So, have you found that to affect your area in Colorado as well? And has it motivated sellers that may have been on the fence considering selling?
Yeah, I think there's a couple different things happening. I mean, obviously, despite COVID, the economy's been pretty strong the last couple of years. So most assets seem to be, until the last few weeks, that is, heading north and in very positive territory. So I think macro basis, sellers have seen opportunities to sell in the market. The simple fact that a lot of the sellers of the owners are baby boomers. That's they're definitely thinking about retirement. And I do think they're seeing more buyers coming in, qualified buyers, and that's another incentive for them to start thinking about selling. So absolutely, the resignation is a positive factor for owners and sellers of small businesses.
Ed, as you start to work with sellers in selling their business, have you found any big common mistakes that they've made as they've started to prepare their business? Anything you could warn folks about, big mistakes or pitfalls?
Yeah, it's a good point. We've had several people approach us recently who wanted to sell the business for one reason or another. We start looking at the information that we require to start that process, and they're just not ready. And some of it's just common sense. You really need to make sure that your books are in order, your P&L statements make some sense. And look, in the small business world, it's very common that individuals will put personal expenses through to reduce the tax rate. That's all. That's all fine and well, um, but you need to be prepared to explain that's what's been happening, so that the buyer is in a better position to understand the real value of the company. So a lot of it's just some of it's just common sense. Make sure you're taking care of the basics. Your books are clean. It's a presentable business. If it's a physical type of location, if it's a retail location, make sure it's got the walls have been painted, everything's organized, because when your buyers come in, that's one of the first things they'll notice. So some of it's just small stuff, but you really need to make sure you're taking care of that before you put your business up for sale.
Ed, what inspired you to become a business intermediary? Like, how did you get started in this field?
Yeah, in fact, so the subject is the resignation. I'm one of them. I had a 35-year career in commercial banking, pretty much all of it overseas. The last 10 to 12 years, I was pretty much working in this space for a major commercial bank. I was managing projects of acquisition, divestiture, and closures. I wanted to get out of that, out of the commercial banking realm. And then it just made sense that I transition into the business brokerage, because even though it's a different market, the skills and the experience I have are directly 100% correlated to what I'm doing now.
You bring a lot of knowledge to that field. Ed, before I ask you my last question, is there anything that I didn't think to ask that you feel is important to share in regards to selling a business or even buying a business in today's economy?
Yeah, I think what I would say is any asset you own, including a business, the first thing you need to know about it if you're going to sell is what is it worth? And we can do that for you. All business brokers will provide this service one way or another. Some do it for a fee, some do it as part of the package of putting a company up for sale, which is what we do. But the first thing you really need to do once you start thinking about selling your business is find out what it's worth. We can do that for you. And sometimes that will be the final incentive for an owner to move into the process. Other times, going back to what we were just talking about, other times we'll point out to them that your business is not ready for sale. Go back, work on it for a year, do this, that, and the other to make sure it's presentable, and then it's time to put it up for sale. So find out immediately what your business is worth before you get into serious thinking about trying to sell it.
For folks considering selling today who would like to speak with you, how do they find you, connect with you, and learn more?
Yeah, our website is sunbeltnetwork.com, greater-denver.co, Colorado. And our telephone number is 720-753-8000.
Ed, this has been terrific. I really appreciate you taking the time to share with my audience today, and I wish you continued success for you and for all of your clients.
Thanks, Mark. I really appreciate you having me. Really enjoyed it. Thanks.
That was Ed Sadler with the Sunbelt Business Brokers of Colorado. And this segment's been brought to you by booksgrowbusiness.com. It's the place where busy professionals get their books published and done to educate consumers, grow their businesses, and to leave a legacy. That's all for now. I'm Mark Imperial, and thanks for joining me.